So, are you ready? Today, we are diving deep into something I think we all think about like all the time, our strengths, right? You know that feeling where you're just like totally in the zone, like you're on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the power of like not just knowing, but actually truly living in your strengths. And we've got excerpts from Baha and Margaret Herbashi's Strengths Workshop ebook, special edition, by the way. And let me tell you, it is jam-packed with like exercises and insights to help you get there.
It's so interesting, how they bring together this idea of psychology and faith.
Hmm.
Because it's one thing to be like, hey, I'm good at this, right?
Yeah.
But it heals differently when you start to see those things, those talents, the stuff you're just naturally drawn to as gifts, like God-given gifts.
Totally. And speaking of gifts, one of the analogies that they use really hit home for me. They talk about like a parent asking their kid to help tidy up toys, right? And the parent honestly doesn't really need the help. Let's be real. They could probably do it way faster themselves, right? But
Right.
it teaches the kid
Right.
responsibility and it also like builds that bond between them.
Yeah. And it's like this amazing parallel to how God, like a loving parent, uses even the like everyday mundane parts of our lives to shape us. Like those things we're drawn to, but maybe we don't feel like an expert yet. Like, what if those are actually our opportunities to learn and grow? Just like that kid tidying up.
It makes you think, right? There's a reason you're drawn to certain things, even if you're still developing those skills. It's like they're saying, lean into it. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this isn't just about like wishing and hoping. The workshop actually lays out 35 different exercises to help you put this into practice.
Exactly. And one that really jumped out at me was the life story exercise. It's all about figuring out those peak moments in your life, like those times when you felt most alive, most engaged. When you really analyze those moments, you start to see these patterns in your strengths. It's like you're connecting the dots of your own life story.
Okay, see, that's really interesting. So you're uncovering these strengths, maybe some you didn't even know you had. But then what? What do you do? How do you actually use them to have a better life?
That's where the rubber meets the road, right? And one of the best takeaways, super practical, is this idea of SMART goals. You've probably heard of it. But they break it down in a way that's like both insightful and actionable,
Okay, remind me what SMART stands for again.
of course. So it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Think of it like this. You have this big vision for your life, right?
Hmm.
But without a clear roadmap, you can easily get lost. SMART goals, they give you that roadmap.
So instead of being all vague, like I want to be happier, it's more like by the end of this month, I want to be exercising 3 times a week because that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
You're making it specific, you can measure it, and you've given yourself a deadline.
Exactly. And the achievable part is so important. The workshop really emphasizes setting goals that are realistic. Like they should push you a little, get you out of your comfort zone, but not so much that you just get discouraged, right? It's all about finding that sweet spot.
And the relevant part is key too, right? Like it's got to be aligned with your values, with what really matters to you. Otherwise, you're just chasing someone else's definition of success. But here's a thought. You've got these awesome goals, you're totally fired up, but how do you stay motivated? Life happens, right? It's so easy to get like totally sidetracked.
You're telling me. And the workshop actually talks about that head on. It all comes down to who you surround yourself with. They call them important and teachable people.
I like that. Important and teachable. So who are these people and where do we find them?
Okay, so important people, they're the ones who energize you. They see your potential even when you're doubting yourself. They're like your own personal cheerleader.
Like having your own personal board of directors for life.
Exactly. And they're not just there to tell you how great you are, although we all need that sometimes, right? They also, like, challenge you to grow, to really become the best version of yourself.
Okay, so how do we find these important people? Are we talking about people we're already close with, or could it be like mentors or even people we admire but haven't met?
That is a great question. And the book says these relationships, they can look a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's close friends or family who've just always seen the best in you. Sometimes it's mentors, teachers, or even, public figures who just like embody the qualities you respect. It's really about surrounding yourself with people who lift you up.
So it's about building the support system, this like network of people who have your back and want to see you succeed.
Exactly. Now, teachable people, they're a bit different. These are the folks you have something to give to, whether it's knowledge, skills, encouragement. They're open to learning from you, letting you use your strengths to make a difference for them.
Okay, so it's not about Finding people who will just sit there while you go on and on about how awesome you are, right? It's about those two-way relationships where you can actually use your strengths to make a difference in their lives too.
100%. And the amazing thing is that act of teaching, of mentoring, it can be so fulfilling in itself because you're using your strengths in a way that benefits others. And that, I think, can really deepen your own sense of purpose.
It's like that saying, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help other people get what they want.
Yes. There's this amazing synergy that happens when we focus on using our strengths to lift other people up.
And this brings us back to what we were talking about earlier, about those imperfect callings. Maybe it's not about waiting until we feel totally ready or qualified before we share our gifts with the world. Maybe it's about embracing the journey of growth and using those strengths to help others, even while we're still working on them ourselves.
You're so right. And the workshop even points out how even small acts of service can have a huge impact. Remember that story from the Bible about the boy who offered up his 5 loaves and 2 fish?
Oh, yeah. And it ended up feeding thousands of people.
Exactly. Imagine if that boy had been like, nah, this isn't enough. I need to wait until I have more to offer. He would have missed out on something incredible.
That is such a good example. It's like we don't have to wait until we have it all figured out to start making a difference.
Absolutely.
Mm.
What matters is that we're willing to step up and offer what we have, trusting that it's enough.
Trusting that God will multiply our efforts. Right?
Yes. And when our strengths line up with God's purpose for us, it's like this ripple effect, bigger than we could ever imagine.
Like that Marianne Williamson quote, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Maybe those times we feel most inadequate, like we're not ready yet, those are actually invitations to step into our full potential, to trust that God can use us in amazing ways.
I love that.
And to wrap it all up, the workshop really wants us to see our lives as offerings, to invest our time, our talents, our energy into things that really matter, that align with what we believe in. Okay, so we've covered identifying our strengths, SMART goals, finding the right people, and seeing our lives as offerings. What else does the workshop have for us in terms of really living this strength-based life?
Well, one of the biggest things that keeps coming up is self-awareness. It's like we have to really know our strengths,
Yeah.
but we also got to be aware of their potential downsides. The shadow side of our strengths is what they call it.
Ooh, okay, the shadow side. I like that. Tell me more about the shadow side. What does that even mean?
Okay, so imagine this. You know someone who is like super organized,
Yeah.
like crazy efficient, a total go-getter. That's a good thing, right?
For sure. Everyone loves someone who gets things done.
Right. But picture that same person in their quest to be so efficient. They start like micromanaging everyone around them, stressing about every little detail. That strength, that drive to achieve, that's flipped over to the shadow side.
Okay, yeah, I can see that happening. So it's not about pretending our strengths don't exist. It's about being real, about how they could trip us up, and figuring out ways to, like, keep things balanced, right?
You nailed it. And one of the best things they talk about is setting boundaries. Like, it's okay to say no to stuff that'll drain you or stuff that just doesn't line up with your values.
So if our super organized friend is feeling totally overwhelmed, they might need to set some limits around their workload, or even just when they're available, maybe delegate tasks or get comfortable saying no to new projects.
Exactly. It's about understanding that you can't be everything to everyone. And it's okay to put yourself first sometimes.
Because if you're always running on empty, you won't have anything left to give anyway.
Exactly. And speaking of energy, there's a really interesting part about what they call your emotional bank account.
Okay, emotional bank account. Now I'm curious.
It's like this. Just like a regular bank account, you've got emotional ups and downs. Every interaction, every experience, it's either a deposit or a withdrawal from your emotional reserves.
So like positive stuff, encouragement, gratitude, those are deposits. And then like criticism, conflict, those are withdrawals.
Exactly. And you want that emotional balance to be healthy, just like your finances.
Right, makes sense.
The workshop talks about how when your emotional bank account is full, you're more resilient, you're more optimistic, way better at handling those curveballs life throws at you.
But if it's running low, that's when we get stressed, overwhelmed.
Right. Exactly.
So how do we make sure we're like in the black, emotionally speaking? What are some good deposits we can make?
Well, they actually tie it back to Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, which is really cool. Remember those?
Yeah, words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, quality time, physical touch.
You got it.
Yeah.
And the workshop talks about how By understanding our own love language
Yeah.
and the languages of the people we care about. We can make these like super meaningful deposits into each other's emotional accounts.
So, like, if my love language is words of affirmation, a genuine compliment from a friend, that would be a huge deposit for me.
Absolutely. And if your friends is acts of service,
Yeah.
doing something thoughtful for them would mean the world.
This is making me realize, like, how important it is to actually know those different
Yeah.
languages and to, communicate what we need.
Absolutely. It's not just about romantic relationships either. This applies to family, friends, coworkers, everyone.
It's like this whole different way of looking at our relationships. Instead of just like going through the motions, we can be way more intentional about filling each other's cups.
Exactly. And they talk about how when we make those emotional connections a priority, it creates this ripple effect, a more supportive, positive environment for everyone.
Okay, so we've got self-awareness, healthy boundaries, and keeping our emotional counts full. What other insights does this workshop have for us on our quest for a more fulfilling life?
One of the big things they emphasize is aligning your actions with your values. Figure out what's really important to you, your core values, and then make choices that reflect those.
Okay, I'm with you so far, but give me an example.
Sure, let's say one of your core values is generosity. You could volunteer at a local charity, donate to a cause you believe in, or even just be more generous with your time and attention every day.
So it doesn't have to be these big sweeping changes to your whole life.
Exactly. It's about finding those little ways to live in alignment with what you believe in.
Because then there's no disconnect, right? Your actions are reflecting your values.
You got it. And that leads into this other big theme of embracing your true self. Like all of it, quirks and all. Let go of needing to be perfect.
Oh, I know. It's so easy to get caught up in that, right? Especially with social media and everything.
It's everywhere you look.
Yeah.
But they talk about how when you embrace who you really are, flaws and all, you attract people who appreciate that, who love you for you.
Like that saying, be yourself, everyone else is already taken.
Exactly. Our imperfections are often what make us special. They're part of your story.
So it's not about hiding the parts of ourselves that we don't love. Right?
No way.
It's about owning them, loving them even,
Mhm.
recognizing that they make us who we are.
Yes. And we need to give that same grace to other people too. We're all just out here figuring it out as we go.
It's about making space for everyone to be themselves without judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they say when you do that, you open up the door for deeper connections.
It all comes back to surrounding yourself with those important people, doesn't it? Creating that kind of support system.
100%.
It starts with us being that for other people.
It really does. It's about shifting our focus from like trying to change people to just loving and accepting them as they are.
And that can be so powerful.
It's amazing how often when you offer that kind of love and acceptance, it comes back to you tenfold.
It's like we're planting these seeds of kindness and compassion.
Exactly. Even the smallest acts of kindness, they have this ripple effect.
Like Mother Teresa said, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love.
Beautifully said. And the workshop, it really pushes us to find those small, everyday ways to make a difference.
Because those little things, they add up.
They really do.
Yeah.
It all comes down to action.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just know this stuff. We have to actually do something with it.
Okay, I'm all about action. What are some of their tips for, like, overcoming procrastination and actually getting things done?
One of my favorites is this idea of low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit. I like it already.
Right. So it's about finding those tasks that are relatively easy to do, but they still move you closer to your goals.
Okay, I'm listening.
A lot of times we get overwhelmed because we're fixated on these huge, daunting tasks.
Oh, I know, the to-do list that never ends.
Exactly. But when we shift our focus to the smaller, more manageable things, we build momentum.
You get a few quick wins under your belt and that motivates you to keep going?
Right. Like instead of trying to write a whole book at once, just focus on one page a day.
Or instead of revamping your whole diet overnight, start by swapping out soda for water.
You got it. Small changes, big impact.
I like it. So break those big goals down into bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. And don't forget to celebrate those small victories along the way.
Yes, celebrate the wins no matter how small.
Because sometimes it's a winding road, right? There will be setbacks.
Life definitely throws those curveballs.
But when things get tough, remember how far you've come. Celebrate the wins that remind you how strong and capable you are.
It's about progress, not perfection.
100%. Okay, so we're taking action, celebrating wins, embracing the journey. What else can we learn from this amazing workshop about living a more fulfilling life?
One of the biggest themes is this. Find joy in the present moment. It's so easy to get caught up in goals, to-do lists, all the busyness that we forget to just like appreciate what's right in front of us.
It's like we're so focused on getting to the destination that we forget to enjoy the ride,
You
right?
got it. And one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to do this is through gratitude.
Gratitude is huge. Even on my worst days, if I can just take a few minutes to think about what I'm grateful for, it's like my whole perspective shifts. I know, right? It's amazing. It helps you focus on the good, even when things are hard.
So how do we actually make gratitude a habit?
Well, one of the things they suggest is keeping a gratitude journal. Just take a few minutes each day to write down 3 things you're grateful for.
I love that. And it doesn't have to be anything big and fancy.
Exactly. A warm cup of coffee, a good conversation, a sunny day. It's about noticing those everyday blessings.
The more you do it, the more you start to see them everywhere.
Exactly. You're training your brain to focus on the good.
It's like this positive feedback loop.
I love that. And gratitude isn't just about, feeling warm and fuzzy inside. It's about recognizing the abundance that already exists in your life.
Because even when things are hard, there's always something to be grateful for.
Exactly. It's a choice.
Ah,
You can focus on the good or dwell on the negative.
so true. Choose gratitude.
And the more grateful you are, the more joy, peace, and contentment you'll experience.
It's about appreciating what you have, not always chasing after what you don't.
You said it. And it's not just about the big stuff either. Find those small moments of joy every day and savor them.
Like, what are some of those little things that bring you joy?
Oh, spending time in nature is a big one for me. Or listening to my favorite music. Or just having a good laugh with someone I love.
It's about being present in those moments.
Yes. And choosing to find the joy in them.
Because joy, it's not something you find, it's something you create.
You got it. And it's contagious too.
Oh, I know. When you're around someone who's joyful, it's like their energy is infectious.
Exactly. It has this ripple effect.
So we're not just making our own lives better by choosing joy, we're making the world a brighter place.
I love that.
It's like maybe one of the best gifts we can give to the world is the gift of our own joy.
Beautifully said.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Finding joy, gratitude, embracing our authentic selves, taking action. What other nuggets of wisdom can we dig up from this workshop?
One that really resonated with me was this whole idea of figuring out your personal why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? What's the motivation behind your goals?
It's that deeper meaning, right? The fuel that keeps you going when things get tough.
Exactly. And they have this really neat exercise for uncovering your why. They call it the 7 layers deep exercise.
Okay, 7 layers deep. You know I love a good exercise. Tell me more.
So it's all about asking yourself why. You want something.
Hmm.
And then you keep asking why to each answer, digging deeper and deeper until you hit that core motivation.
Okay, so give me an example.
Let's say your goal is to start your own business. First, you'd ask, why do I want to start my own business?
And maybe the answer is because I want to be my own boss.
Okay, good. Now ask yourself, why do I want to be my own boss?
Because I want more freedom and flexibility.
Perfect. And why is that important to you?
Hmm.
Keep going.
So you keep peeling back those layers until you get to the heart of it.
Exactly. You might discover that your desire for freedom stems from wanting to spend more time with your family. Or maybe it's about finally having the time to pursue a passion.
It's like you're uncovering the real reason behind the reason.
Yes. And when you understand your why, it gives your goals so much more meaning.
It's not just a goal anymore, it's something deeper.
Right. It becomes something you're driven to achieve.
It becomes part of your story.
Exactly. And that why, it becomes your anchor.
Yeah.
Especially when things get hard, you can always come back to it.
He keeps you grounded and focused.
Exactly. And it can even help you make tough decisions.
How so?
Well, when you're faced with a choice, ask yourself, which option is more aligned with my why?
It's like this internal compass guiding you towards the path that feels most true to you.
Exactly. And one more thing about the why, don't be afraid if it changes over time.
Yeah, we're constantly growing and evolving, right?
Exactly. What matters is that you're always checking in with yourself,
Mhm.
making sure your choices are aligned with what truly matters to you.
Okay, so we've talked about understanding our why, which is huge. But the workshop also goes into this concept of discernment, especially when it comes to our callings.
Yes. They really emphasize that your strengths, your passions, they're not random. They're gifts given to you for a reason.
So it's not about trying to figure out your calling all on your own. It's about looking at what you're already naturally drawn to, those things that light you up.
Exactly. They're clues pointing you towards your purpose.
I love that. So how do we actually start to discern what our calling might be? What are some practical steps we can take? Okay, I like that. So instead of sitting around waiting for like a lightning bolt of inspiration,
Hmm?
we can actually be proactive about figuring out what we're meant to do.
Exactly. It's about being open to God's guidance,
Mhm.
paying attention to those little nudges, and being willing to try new things, even if they scare you a little.
So true. It's like we're not just waiting for our calling to show up at our doorstep with a bouquet of flowers, we're actively seeking it out.
100%. And the thing is, this whole discernment thing, it's not like a one and done deal. It's a journey, a lifelong thing.
Like we're constantly recalibrating our internal compass, making adjustments as we go.
Exactly. And trusting that God's got us.
That's so key, right? That trust that even when we can't see the big picture, he can.
Absolutely. He's got the master plan.
Okay, so we've talked about understanding our why, discerning our callings. Anything else we should take away from this treasure trove of a workshop?
One thing that really stood out to me was the emphasis on community. The idea that, we weren't designed to do this whole life thing alone, you
Oh,
know?
that's so real. Like looking back, the times I felt most supported, most empowered, it's always been when I've had people around me who believe in me.
Exactly. And the workshop talks about how community isn't just like a nice bonus. It's essential for our well-being, for growth, for everything.
So it's not enough to just figure out our strengths and then like lock ourselves in a room and try to use them all by ourselves. We need those connections.
Exactly.
And when we share those strengths with others, it's like they multiply.
100%. And they have this idea of creating a personal board of directors, which I love.
Personal board of directors. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So you basically create this group of people,
Mhm.
people you trust, people you look up to, people who inspire you to be your best self.
Like your own personal dream team.
Exactly. And they can be anyone, family, friends, mentors, even people you've never met.
So not just people who are geographically close to you, but people who you connect with on a deeper level.
Yes, people who just get you. And the key is to really nurture those relationships.
Yeah, because they're not just going to magically maintain themselves. It takes effort, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Community is a two-way street. You give, you receive, you support, you're supported.
It's about recognizing that we all have something to offer.
Exactly. And the workshop encourages us to find those communities where we truly feel like we belong.
Where our people are.
Yes.
So how do we find those communities?
Well, it might be a church group, or maybe volunteering for a cause you're passionate about. Maybe it's an online community. The point is, find your people.
Find those places where you feel safe to be yourself, where you feel celebrated, not just tolerated.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to be part of multiple communities.
Eh.
Different groups can fulfill different needs.
That makes sense. We're multifaceted beings. So instead of searching for that one perfect community, it's more about finding the places where different parts of you feel at home.
I love that. And here's the thing about community. It's not just about support. It's also a catalyst for growth.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, think about it. When you surround yourself with people who are constantly learning and growing, it rubs off on you.
It's like this upward spiral of positive energy.
I love that. It's contagious.
So true. So how can we be more intentional about creating that kind of positive, growth-oriented community in our own lives?
Well, I think it starts with being that person for others. Be the one who lifts others up. Be the one who creates that safe space for vulnerability and authenticity.
Because we all need that, right? That
Yeah.
feeling of being seen and heard and accepted for who we truly are.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we wrap up this incredible deep dive into the Strengths Workshop, there's one last thing I want to touch on, the idea of legacy.
Yes, that's a powerful one. They talk about how our lives, they have this ripple effect.
Like our actions have consequences, and not just for us, but for everyone around us.
Exactly. And the workshop asks us to really think about the legacy we want to leave behind.
What do we want to be remembered for? That's a big question.
It is, and it can feel kind of daunting.
For sure.
But they remind us that legacy isn't about being famous or having a ton of money. It's about the choices you make every single day.
So it's those small, seemingly insignificant moments
Yeah.
that actually end up shaping the world around us.
Exactly. A kind word, a helping hand, a listening ear, those things matter.
They really do.
It's about living your life in a way that not only reflects your values, but also inspires others to do the same.
And our legacy, it's not just about what we achieve,
It's about the people we touch.
our relationships, the love we give and receive.
Beautifully said. They want us to see our lives as this incredible gift,
Mm.
an opportunity to leave the world a little brighter than we found it.
What a beautiful way to look at it. And, this whole conversation really brings us full circle, doesn't it?
How so?
To the idea that each of us has these incredible gifts, and we're called to share these gifts with the world.
Yes, we're not just supposed to keep them hidden away.
Absolutely. Our strengths, our passions, they're clues to our purpose.
And the world needs what you have to offer.
So embrace your uniqueness, work on those talents.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to let your light shine.
Because here's the thing, you are capable of amazing things.
Yes, you are. Don't ever forget that.
So to everyone listening, go out there and shine bright. The world needs your unique brand of awesome.